Dick on the call. Is Brock on as well, or anyone else?
I think just Mr. Knowles here.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay also?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
We have two guests here, Dick. So we're going to go around the room and still introduce ourselves tonight. Okay. Would you like to introduce yourself first?
I'm Dick Knowles, community member. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Dalton with the Health Committee.
Lisa Gorley, Chair of the Health Committee.
Jim Gorley, school board member.
Blair Larson with the city, here to help with the technology.
Teresa Bates with assistant concerned citizen. Dr. Flores.
Oh yeah, we want our media to go ahead and introduce himself. Sorry. Okay. Sean, go ahead.
Sure. Turn on your mics, please.
Jeff Lynn with the police department.
Thank you, everybody. So first thing on the agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes. If everybody's had an opportunity to look at them, we would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, so the next thing, we have our community reports. So, do you have anything to report, Bob or Dick?
I think the only thing instead of the health fair is just, I sit on the committee for Samaritan Health with the new clinic they're proposing to build here in Sweet Home. And last month, like I said, our goal was to raise $1 million towards that project. We just started last month. Last month we were at 587. This month we're at 618,000 towards that $1 million goal. So we're moving forward to get this brought to Sweet Home. So pretty excited about it to be just 2 months into this and past our midpoint already. So
That's very exciting.
very good.
Do we have any questions from anybody? Go ahead, Sean.
Is there a mental health component to that project yet, or how do we ensure that there is?
That's where I'm really pushing.
Okay.
I've talked with the other individuals on the board, especially Brandy, that's the head of that, and really expressed the need for mental health in Sweet Home. And so we're looking at that piece of it to add into that clinic because there's still a lot of unknowns of how many services we're going to have there, but mental health is one of them. What that looks like, we don't know if that's an on-site person there, if it's telemedicine type system where we can, but we're definitely added that to our list of.
Is there a way to push for on-site? And is there something we can do to help you with that?
I think right now, just putting it in front of them. I know Brandy and some others on there. Alex Paul, Debbie's wife is also on that same committee. We're all advocates for the mental health piece of it. So, but yes, I think further as we go along, then there'll be that more opportunity to get a push from people like yourselves and others that, because we recognize that mental health is a need.
Tell me when.
We'll do that. Thank you for asking.
And if I might, Sean, I'm putting my nose in the middle of it too. Got a contact with Brandy myself, so we'll gang up on them.
That's awesome. Anybody else? Okay, so we will go ahead and move on to Western University. Seeing that Dr. Horton is not here, we'll not have that discussion tonight. We'll go straight to the Homeless Action Committee. Again, Brock may be late. I'm not sure where he's at tonight, but Dr. Horton knew he wouldn't be here. On the back table by the napkin or the Kleenexes is a folder with the rules for the homeless shelter, and I would recommend everybody grab one. So we're going to go through those. They now have page numbers, and I did notice that we have this to go through tonight. And we'd ask that we get some tentative plan for the 7-person committee from the community. outlined to take to the council as well, and that does not seem to be provided yet, but I just want you to know that that has been asked for. And at the end of this, there is COVID hours are addressed. So as we go through this, you're going to see regular business hours, but the COVID being open during the day, that's addressed at the back of it. Because I was going through marking dates and times and with my little question marks, and I realized after I read it that it was on the last page. So I just wanted to put that out to help with that discussion as we move forward. So on page 4, it starts, and then has anybody had time to preview this? Okay, good, we're all in the same boat. So we'll go through, we just read through it and mark anything that you have any questions. On section B, I have a couple of questions, and that'll be, so just a point of clarification. The sleep center in Walla Walla, as it stands, had been closed during the day. People had to leave and be gone all day long outside of the unit. Because of COVID, they were hanging out in town and having some issues. Okay. So when they made it to where it was open during the day, there were less calls, less community issues, and they've discovered that there's a benefit to that. So this is what we're looking at, is having this open for patrons to be in during the day as well. Okay. So my question originally was 4 and 5, but it looks like that was addressed in the back of the packet. Okay. The last thing I have is number 8 that I noticed. It addresses minor children and says in the sleeping area, unless accompanied by his or her parent or legal guardian. It is my understanding that nobody underneath the age of 18 will be on this site. So I had a question as to why that was included. Does anybody have it? Chief, do you have any idea why they would do that?
Not necessarily. I'm not sure if it's for a visitation aspect at some different time, but my understanding is no children will be residing at that location.
That was mine too. All right. So that's why I marked that one. Does anybody have any questions about page 4?
I think this is largely a copy paste of what Walla Walla's doing.
Boilerplate type
Yeah.
thing from them.
Okay. And that's why as we go through this, if we see anything that we believe needs to be added to this, we need to make sure that it does. And you might want to wait till make your notes and put it in the end so that it might be addressed later. Okay. So we have guests. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
One of my questions is, and I just, started reading through this, but when it comes to, where it says no one may, lewd, indecent, obscene, what are the consequences of people that do something like this? What happens to them? Where do they go, or what do they do with them? How do handle it?
They are kicked out, and there's time frames for each incident or the severity of the incident, but they lose that right to just sleep anywhere they want. Does that make sense?
You want to tell them about this?
Oh, part of the reason that she's asking is the other day we had an incident where a man was
pointed out that my children were right there in front of him, he continued to play with himself, but.
Yeah, there would be
apparently
none of
in Oregon,
that.
That's not indecent exposure, because you have pleasure. Somehow,
Well,
I don't know.
so that's
It wasn't
addressed in
right.
this. So that is addressed in this, okay? And
Can the chief address that?
I'll have to actually look into it, but yes, you have to actually be in some form of sexual stimulation to be charged with certain crimes.
So how do you protect
I'm not saying it's a great law that we have in place, but it's what we have to work with.
yeah,
And so I can talk with you more I'm not familiar with the incident you're talking about, so we can obviously talk more about what took place.
So one thing I think it's important to be clear on is these rules that we're talking about are not rules for the overall city. They're rules for the site that we're talking about
yes,
eventually being in
I
place
think
in the
our
city.
concern is that they were being kicked out of the facility behavior, then
Where are they
go
gonna
out
go?
and do it
Yeah.
publicly to
No,
other people.
I completely understand. And the great thing about having this facility is that if they can't, if we do it right, then having this facility enables us to make them move on from other
If somebody
places.
complains.
Well, they shouldn't be congregating other areas either. Because there is a place for them to go, regardless of whether they have been kicked out of that place or not.
yeah. So the place would be is set up, and we've actually walked through one that was desirable enough to be there as opposed to on the street, but not so desirable that it's inappropriate access to things. And so there's this crazy balance, but by having this facility, then we do have more control within the community. They have the same rights as the rest of our laws afford, but we do have more ability than we have currently. So it's actually very, very beneficial to neighbors like you. So, all right, so we're going to go to page 5. Let's preview page 5 if you have any questions. I did notice number 12 is the same as number 6. The other one said opened and then it said unopened. It seems like they can consolidate those. Is there a value to having them separate? Or could they?
You're talking about 12 and
12 and 6. One says an opened package containing alcohol or consume it, and the other one says unopened packages containing alcohol may be possessed. Couldn't it just have said alcohol, whether opened or unopened?
Opened or unopened?
Yeah, I think that would help. I also thought on number 18 that noise should be addressed as well for pets.
Yep.
And I don't know if you guys notice any other duplicates that could be consolidated.
Well, there's the noise ordinance in the city of Sweet Home addresses barking dogs, but
I think we could easily include it right here. It is later in it.
do you remember the how that goes? It's 20 minutes within an hour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want that language in here?
I would think that would be good to make sure that, i.e.
Well,
city ordinance on barking dogs or something like that, or,
I think we need to remember that this is basically a boilerplate, and so that 7-member board will have the say in what actually is presented and
Mhm.
becomes the policy of this sleep center if it's
yeah.
if
But
it comes into
that's why
existence.
I'm saying that it should reference the city policy on
Thank
that,
you.
because they'll be subject to that no matter whether.
well, I had just noticed dangerous, diseased, or aggressive, and I'm thinking noisy, but they do have a page to sign for pets. But if they're going to sign this one, it should be up front, maybe included in that. But we'll move on.
22 kind of touches it a little bit more. I could have talked about noise there as well, but
It is true.
should not create any sound or noise. Barking dog or screaming cat, I guess, if you want one that's loud.
Okay. Any other questions?
So,
We can move to page 6 if everybody's ready.
Where it says weapons, do you need to
I think if you
have
start
that
listing
out a
them,
little bit?
I think if you start listing them, then people
No,
will take advantage of
I'm
that.
just thinking of a way to say weapons without, that would
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 you-
encompass everything.
I think you could expand on that more if that's what.
That's what I was wondering about,
clarify
because
what an actual weapon would be considered.
some of the weapons that are carried, you may not think of as a weapon, but they're used that way.
When they talk about knives and things, is there a certain size that becomes a weapon, or do they allow any knives at all, or butter knives, or?
Where they're living
That's
there.
that's what
I think that needs to be clarified. I'm not sure how Walla Walla handles it.
that's what I'm saying needs to be
So-
clarified in there as a weapon.
I've seen an umbrella even sharpened and nasty. So do you want to look at that piece and make some recommendations on that? Okay.
If I might, this might also be something either that falls on the shoulders of the 7-member group and or the people who are actually involved in running the facility. A particular person may walk in with a particular, what you and I might not see as a weapon, but they're using it as a weapon.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking of canes and things like that, which anybody else is using just because it's supportive and they're disabled or whatever. But as soon as it turns into a weapon, they're out of there. But you have to give some, leniency to the person who's running the shop at the time.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any more questions about page 6?
well, it's kind of interesting on, looking at page 6, if you look at, on J, was talking about perishable foods. It's kind of interesting, users may not store those items with perishable foods, but if you drop back up to 24, with the exception of perishable foods, users can also go.
Well, but that's what can be brought into the sleeping area.
Yeah.
So you can actually bring perishable foods into the sleeping area, but not left in the storage area. I
Oh,
think
I
is
see.
the difference there.
Store.
You may not store them, but you can eat them.
Yeah.
If you were eating them in the.
Other than that.
Okay. So
Now, on these rules right here, obviously there's a place for a signature and a date. So the individual would be handed these, go through with them, and then they have the opportunity to sign this. Now, if they don't sign it,
they don't come in.
they don't come in, correct?
That would be my impression, is that they
Yeah.
wouldn't be eligible for admission.
And later in the packet, it actually outlines each person's jobs. So the gate person, that when checking people in and out, would track that. Hang on, I gotta call it later. All right, so let's go to page 7.
And I think these will be maybe changed a little bit by the 7-person board too. Actual,
Potentially, yeah.
yeah. But conceptually, this is what they're thinking.
That was kind of my reaction. This speaks as if the place is actually there and it isn't yet. So
Uh-huh.
be tailored to site specific, so.
Yes.
Do we have any questions?
Well, maybe I haven't got to it yet, but well, it's just talking about the sleep center here, and it has nothing to do with the other parts of that, any of the counseling or anything.
No, that's all we do.
And I haven't read anything here where it says anything about, making sure that they register with them or
Yeah,
do
it'll
anything?
be later in the job descriptions.
Okay.
Okay.
This part from 7 on is it's a flat out copy and paste. There's no
Okay.
edits in it, I don't believe.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay. So, yeah.
It's not specifically the rules, it's more about procedures that are specific to their facility.
Yes.
Mhm.
So page 8 is literally how they're going to be registering people in. And the council is interested in this kind of thing. They want to know because they didn't get to go to the site and see the trash cans with the locks on them to put their gear in. So it's really hard to imagine what that would look like. Rules regarding pets are on page 9.
Yeah, and there's where your noise comes in. It's in
Yeah.
there.
I know it doesn't say that owners will be responsible for cleanup of their dog
Yes, it
stuff,
does.
but
It
it
does.
says that the owners.
They can be kicked out for not taking care of their pet waste.
Did
In the
it say
design
that
of the one,
exactly?
yeah,
Well,
Number 8.
it goes,
it says it on the 11.
and in
Yeah,
the,
it just
in
didn't.
the no trespass area or the trespassing area, it says it as well.
Okay.
And this particular site that we're talking about with Brock, there's 2 areas for pets to go to the bathroom. Because the one in Walla Walla didn't have a site like that, but we understand the value of a pet for somebody who's homeless, and so.
Sean, from your experience, I mean, there are some of the individuals that do have dogs.
3 right now.
Looking at this rules about pets, especially when it comes to vaccinations and that, is that something that's the opportunity for them to have that done?
It might be.
Because I was kind of wondering, like our local veterinarian, because those, someone living on the street, probably one, doesn't even have an idea of where you'd take a pet to get it vaccinated or the need to have it vaccinated or why, or have the funds to do that. And I'm kind of thinking that might be a challenge for us to be able
Or
to
fixed or any of that.
put that service up for them, maybe through our local veterinarian clinic.
But once we get the site, we do have people in our community that will make accessible spaying and neutering of cats and feral animals and that kind of thing. So I think those resources would be more available to somebody once we get a site. So. Okay. Everybody good with rules of pets? Page 9, let's go to 10. Trespass procedure.
Does beg the question whether we really actually have a deputy city manager. It's just a change of language.
There will be somebody on site all the time.
What is it called? Assistant?
We do not have an assistant or deputy city manager.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pro tem,
Oh, that's what I meant. Pro tem.
At,
but
at
that's
Walla
only when you
Walla,
got
in the
town.
middle of the facility, there was a camera that was hooked up to the police station. Yes. Yes. And the facility itself didn't have a monitor to watch that. It was just plugged into the police station.
Which makes more sense.
Now, whether or not somebody sat there and watched it all the time, I doubt that, but it'd be like any other hallway, and, you know, you can go back and look at it if you need to.
Well, the biggest thing is when you get a call, you can look and say, okay, what's going on here before you ever go in.
Yeah.
For safety wise.
So if you're ready, we could go to page 11, and that's where I noticed some time frame differences. On the earlier pages, it said 10 p.m. to 7, or excuse me, to 9, and this one says 7.
So,
I made notes of
so
that.
here's where I'm looking at this, and it says 300 feet for a trespass on this site. But we're also talking about having places for them to come to appointments and things like that. So I noticed it does say may only come to exit appointments. So that would be in that building that would be just outside of it, even though it's within that 300 feet of trespass.
That 300 feet is an ordinance in Walla Walla. It's something they implemented later after when they started trespassing people initially. They would go on the other side of the fence and sleep. So they implemented an ordinance that said you have to go at least 300 feet away. And so they parked at they would sleep in a parking lot that was about 300 feet away. That's the reason for that there. We don't have that ordinance here, I don't believe. That's where that comes from. That's just, again, part of the.
Okay, well, I was
This
just wondering if that was
Walla Walla.
going to be appropriate, or how would we?
I think this is okay. There's some mindset changes that occur with somebody who starts imprinting on an area like this. Just like when they get trespassed, they will lose the hut that they're in and not be able to return to that hut. It's motivation to be good. Just like not being able to sleep outside the fence where now your community exists inside that fence. I think it's sound. I know that's hard, but if you want people to modify their behavior that have learned to go beyond certain social norms, it's a different carrot.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so
do believe that a lot of them though are mentally ill and stuff, and that it won't matter what you do.
I agree with that.
But that's
But we
why
just do what we can.
we have that facility to try and deal with some of that also, treatment and things there also.
There's
Yeah.
some people that no matter what we do, they will always be on the street, but other people that do need the social norms and they won't be there very long. They'll transition into housing rather quickly. And so,
And we'll always see that.
yes, yes.
See, well, they had how many people? They had 100 and some total.
In the community, 182, they an average within the community, but the facility itself wasn't it under 50? It was like 45 or
48.
48.
48, I think is.
And
Limit on the side with this one, how many it'll do as a whole, but
yes, yes. We haven't started building huts yet.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering if you guys
Yeah.
have like a goal in mind or.
40 something.
Yeah.
But didn't Walla Walla have so many, they were successful in transitioning?
Yes,
I think
45. Even during COVID last year, Walla Walla was able to get 45 people back into housing. And that's huge,
So
considering that it was during COVID, and that's the norm for their entire population. So that was great.
I see it making a big difference in the way people think about housing whenever they're doing this, and I think that they can move forward, and with some help, maybe, we used to have somebody in town, Gus, that actually had money coming in, that had these things, and when he stayed on his meds, he was fine.
You shouldn't say his name.
I'm sorry, Gus is gone.
Okay.
He's
So-
gone.
Everybody already knows too.
But you know, when he was on his meds, he was fine. But when he was off, he didn't want to stay in any housing or anything like that. So, but we didn't have a facility that would deal with it in town. And with this, it would be, I think it would be a lot more helpful. And I'll retract my statement.
Okay, so we digress. This facility will be clean. It's not a tent city. And there's things available there that they don't have on the street right now. So
Yes.
we'll get whatever facilities we can, counseling, pantry, that kind of stuff. And so, all right, this will make it much better. They'll have things they don't have now. And it'll make a point of contact for people to make it easier for those people who provide the services to provide services to more people or more effectively. So let's go on to page 12. I propose that when we get down into lewd conduct, that we insert, when it comes to a person urinating or defecating somewhere other than an appropriate use of a bathroom, portable restroom, porta potties, or sandy can. Just appropriate use. If that's okay. Dick, have you had any questions so far?
You've picked up on everything so far, except the last one. That was a good one. Thank you.
Any questions? Let's go to page 13. Fourteen's pretty light. Oh, wait.
Are we on page 13?
Yes.
I always struggle with the phrase. I've seen this before, and maybe Jeff has some feelings about this, but they talk about camp rule violations, alcohol, pot, and then drug paraphernalia inside the center. That implies that the drug itself would be just fine as long as you don't have the paraphernalia. There are other drugs other than alcohol and pot. So
Should we say
I'll let
illegal
you-
drugs and paraphernalia?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I would do, illegal.
Because legal drugs,
Well-
how do you address that? Legally prescribed drugs?
Well, it's illegal if it doesn't belong to you.
But if it's legally prescribed to them, it's okay.
Yeah.
But if it's not legally prescribed to them, it would be considered illegal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that notion of what is a drug and what isn't. And I think we're talking about illegal drugs, but
I think that's where we need to stick.
yeah, we just.
Illegal
Well,
drugs.
what I'm saying is, if they were taking something other than their own prescription, it would be illegal.
Right,
It would be considered illegal, correct?
Yes.
yeah.
Is that okay with you guys? Okay. Thank you for picking up on that, Dick. Anything else? All right, so let's go to 14. 17. $16.
How do they handle the nighttime security?
We'll have to have somebody on site.
And the person on site, do they have, I'm thinking of my granddaughter. My granddaughter took care, she was a CNA. And, but for a while she was caring for mentally ill patients. And what they had done was they'd taken a motel that was kind of on the outskirts of town. And the main building was in their community center where they watched TV and they ate and everything. But come a certain time, they had to go to their motel room. And then she locked the doors. And she said she didn't mind dealing with all the schizophrenics and things like that. She said they were nice people and everything. But there was one gentleman that was a real pervert, and he was bad enough during the daytime. But after she locked the doors, he would be there banging on the doors and trying to get in. And I know that she had requested that somebody else besides just her be there because he was getting very violent, and she was having a hard time with him trying to get in at night. And I just wondered, you know, the safety of the person, or is it just one person, or is it many persons, and is there
Chief?
safety for them?
The agency, the organization that will be running this proposed site, FAC, their policy is to have 2 people. If they're on site, they have to have at least 2 people on site. So there will be at least a pair whenever they're staffing.
So you legally, you can't lock somebody in where they can't get out.
No, I think she was talking about, they
Yeah.
lock the,
Lock them
Like
out.
the office.
Yeah,
Of
from
course.
out, yeah, they can't come in. But, you know, if somebody
they
wants
have
to
have
leave,
egress whenever
Yeah.
So these people can leave the site,
but they
but
just can't come
they can't
back.
come back. And then we have, they have a contingency. This is,
Volunteer or
I think you're probably gonna have a little of both.
The 2, I think, that there's paid positions, I believe they're paid positions.
Yeah,
They're talking about a mix as they, depending on the
Yeah.
resources. So
coverage.
yeah.
Currently, we have churches that have been providing warming centers and different things. And so I believe a lot of those people would want to participate in this program, but to what degree would be up to them. But at this point, we will have to have, or in fact, FAC will have to have paid staff on site. It's just the way it works.
So if I
Yes.
might, this actually addresses the question I had for the whole section. The title of the section is volunteer duties,
Yes.
but what about the folks that are non-volunteers, the people that actually work there? What are their duties? And it would be nice to see that. We don't have to do it tonight, but somebody's got to be above a volunteer position, or we're going to
Thank
run
you.
ourselves into trouble.
I think you're gonna have to have that board, that 7-person board kind of go over what is expected and then make a transition that job responsibilities to that, because I think it has to tailor it to what's needed too.
Well,
I think we won't know that till
when we were there, they had people who actually lived there, providing some services, checking in and out of showers, housekeeping, that kind of thing. And then they had regular people who were the paid people doing the laundry with the washer and dryers and stuff, because, washer and dryers need to be maintained appropriately. And there were people working, doing counseling inside the main office. There was a lot of things going on that aren't addressed in this. So it's just the day-to-day things. And I think the 7 people that are from our community that oversee this, they'll have to deal with a lot of that. What we can do with volunteers, what we can't, and coverage and great intentions. Sometimes you plan on volunteers and they're not there, and then other times you have unforeseen opportunities. So
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I think it was just noticeable that there wasn't a section for
Yeah,
thank you.
employees or whatever we want to call them. It can be blank, or it can be, a short outline, like to boss the volunteers, just as basic as that.
well,
I mean, if I
probably
were
expectations, right, Dick? What expectations
Right.
might be needed?
I think they covered a lot
Well,
of
or
that.
who oversees the volunteers.
Yeah,
It's more, for me, I've run into this before years ago, and someone tried to set up a much larger, it's a long story, but within about 2 months, they actually had to hire someone, and the person running it was embarrassed because this is all going to be peer run, and we're all going to do it ourselves, and it fell apart very quickly. And
Right.
as soon as they hired actually 3 people, place settled down and ran exactly the way it was supposed to be, run. So you just, no offense to anybody, you just about have to have a boss, and somebody that the city council can go to and say, this is what our expectations are. So again, we don't necessarily have to put it here except as like a broad outline. If I were on the city council, I'd want to know,
Yeah.
who's telling them to do. And even the 7-person board, that's asking a lot of a community group. I don't know. The mental picture I have is sort of like an executive director. The board would have someone underneath, kind of an executive director.
Okay, so you're right. It's not saying in here, so we will make sure that we do. When we went to Walla Walla, they had a director, and he's the one that guided us around and talked to us and told us everything going on, and he seemed very competent. And he hadn't been there. He was replacing somebody else. Do you remember, Sean, that it was like 18 months or something he had been there?
Yeah.
But yeah, they have a
That was kind of my backhanded remark about the deputy city manager and all that. Here, clearly, they say the deputy city manager is technically the boss. And if he or she isn't around, and the city manager, well, we don't have that kind of setup here in Sweet Home. So they acknowledge someone of import is overseeing this whole operation.
Yeah.
Not on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
It's a little bit different situation here, but something that we got all the churches involved in different things, such as each week a different church, and then they rotated, because we had several churches, would volunteer. They donated money, laundry, soap, different things like that. And then we had a laundromat where they would, once a week, the different churches would head up laundry for the homeless and everything.
That's been going on here for how long has Manna been in existence? 20 years? 20?
Probably Manna, which
It is here.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Manna serves 3 days a week, meals. The low point was about 50 meals a day, and then on the high side would be 100 plus meals. But I could see where our Manna and our the Gleaners and the Shims whole group kind of tied into this process as well, which that is an organization of churches that actually are together making that happen. So you're right. You're right to
Yeah.
your point about the churches involved.
They've been doing that for a long time.
Very long time.
Yeah.
So did we leave off on page 17?
Yes.
Okay.
I had some questions there.
Okay.
When you're talking about showers, I think this is pretty naive to say that we can just leave soap and shampoo and conditioner out underneath the sink and allow them to take what they need. I think that we need to have it. You need to check it out to them. You need to check out a towel when it comes back in. You mark it off. That sort of thing.
So what I saw was they had a little container that had like hotel-sized soaps and shampoos that they could use. And it was, in fact, just open for people.
Well, that's
to
what
take.
it says here, but
But that's what we saw. And the towels and stuff, I believe, were being checked in and out.
yeah, it doesn't. It says that
Okay.
they weren't. If you need more, you can go and get them out of the hallway. So that probably should be changed.
So, but we saw it working, and it wasn't large containers. It's like what people donate now to Shim, and they're.
Well, I understand that. I think that it will probably work after a while. But I think you're going to have to, when you first start off, you're going to have to start with, okay, here's your soap and this and this, because people will say, oh, I don't have any of that, and you know.
Okay.
And I think
Well,
that's what would
Jim, to
happen.
that point, I think until this site is actually developed and set up, we really don't know what that might entail.
I don't know.
Here's your bathroom, kid, comes in a little container, you hand it to them, and that's theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you sure wouldn't be sharing soaps or things like that.
No. No.
I could see that kind of being tailored again to we actually know, because I know we have a shower trailer available, but again, I think probably a first shot.
That's what I'm saying. This is going to have to be reworked
Okay.
here.
Is there anything else?
I think the only thing that I stand out earlier, you kind of touched on, is volunteers. Here it talks about a word about rule enforcement. All volunteers are responsible for rule enforcement as needed. And, you know, as a volunteer, you're asking a lot of a volunteer that's going in there and has an expectation that you're going to step in between that might be unruly. I think clearing that up a little more. I know I volunteered a lot over the years, but again, you can keep a volunteer base, or you can actually run off your volunteers a lot, because they said, you know, I didn't sign up to do this, so I'm not going to be the milk monitor.
Well, I can tell you, as far as a volunteer, if I was there and there was a fight broke out, I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to call 911 and say, hey, we've got a problem down here. You want to come fix it?
So I think there's a degree of liability what you're asking a volunteer to go in there and do.
What do you think, Chief?
Well, I think it could be handled a couple ways. I mean, I don't, nobody wants to see a volunteer have to step into a physical altercation or even try to prevent one. But I think it should be incumbent on the volunteers to report any violations.
That's what I'm saying. If there's something going on,
regardless of how small
call.
it is or how large it
Yeah.
is, they should be make sure they are reporting that. So
Yeah.
that could be addressed, and it goes right back to the more rules and the more enforceable those rules are, the follow through that we have, I think the more successful this place will be.
Well,
Exactly.
and if there's a physical altercation, you're going to trespass those people at that time, and you would
Right.
want the police there to do that, because there might be, you might need to send one to one end of town and one to the other.
Okay, so
Did Walla Walla, just real quick, with their volunteer base, did they provide any sort of training for their volunteers? Was that even talked about or discussed?
I don't recall discussing it, but I would imagine they do.
Just a question, you know, you think of volunteers, there's probably a certain format you'd want to train those individuals around that, so maybe that's a future discussion.
The FAC has talked about volunteer training. They do
And
train volunteers
17 is
now.
where you talk about the extended COVID hours.
yeah, that was the last one. Amendment for extended opening hours,
Yeah, on
which
bottom of
seemed to be
17.
very beneficial to them. And it continues on 18. although they had people there during the day, instead of exiting all day and then blocking the gate, they were kept people the ability to go in and out, but that's
On page 17, they talk about the WWAH exit homelessness staff.
That's Walla
Is that the
Walla.
Walla
Alliance.
Walla
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, all this second from page 7 back. It's all just it's a site specific. It's just Walla Walla. That's the name of their organization there.
Boilerplate for Walla Walla.
Yeah, but that's the paid staff probably, right?
Yeah.
Is that, I think, so they're acknowledging that they have a core of paid staff that help. Yep.
Mhm.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, between the hours of 8 and 6.
Sean, on this sleep center, this is addressing people that are coming in on what, I take it?
well, there's
sorry?
cars there too. There were
So we're
some people who were homeless
that's what I'm
had
saying,
cars.
Cars, motorhomes, other vehicles versus a
So
person just on foot. Or
They parked. Some people had cars, but they parked them in spaces outside the fence.
yes, and they weren't sleeping in them. They were sleeping in the center. But if they didn't come in at the right time, they were stuck outside, and they actually had a pop-up for people. And so,
This proposal does include a limited number of spaces for overnight parking, though.
which I think is important because we do have people who have RVs, and although we don't want to end up with RVs parked there that are immovable,
So if AC requires them to move in the morning.
we had that conversation about them having to move them every day to prove that they run, you know, and so we don't end up with that situation. And maybe even not a long-term situation, but something so that people aren't in the neighborhoods and all over town in RVs, because there are potties there are showers and stuff. So, and then on page 19, there is a breakdown of a proposed budget and where the funding would come from.
I have a question about that. As far as, I mean, obviously you want to do it mostly via donation from the city. Is there any guarantees of the tax that other taxes aren't going to go up to facilitate? I mean, I know
Well,
a portion of our taxes already go to that and it's distributed, but.
once we have the facility, they'll be able to get more grants. And so that will help. But at this point, that is unknown. The conversation is, and was proposed, that we use the money from the pot taxes, which isn't out of anybody's normal taxes. But currently, because of the cost of cleaning up the sites and stuff of the homeless and going to these calls and things, it is currently costing the city taxpayer revenue. And we don't like that, but it's a reality. And so
My fear is that it would just go up. Like, I don't want to have to put more in that.
So
the goal would be to have it run mostly funded by grants. This is FAC. This is not a city homeless site. This is FAC site.
also,
Yes.
if I can interject, the city doesn't have the ability to increase any tax rates for property taxes. Our property tax rate is a permanent tax rate. The only rates that change are the temporary 5-year levies, like the one that was passed for the police department recently and for the library. Other than that, so there's not any way that this could affect your taxes going up, at least not when it comes to local property taxes. Any increase in your property taxes would come from the assessment that's done by the county assessor, assessing your property at a higher value.
That's a good question, because that's kind of been a common theme of others that have attended here is, I don't want to have to pay for this. That was a big concern. So, I mean, you're not out of line with your question. Others have asked that same question. So.
Thank you, and I appreciate that clarity, because
Sure.
that is one of those, like, it's a great idea, but I don't want to.
That's right.
Well, the cost to the taxpayer right now is quite a bit. And we need to try and lower that down by doing this. It should help us. And I think having a place for them, it's not just lowering the cost down, but it's trying to help them to get out of this position. And what was there, 45 up there that went out into transitioned into housing out of this? That's a great thing, and you know, if you get people to come off of the drugs and the other things, that's a great thing. And so for us to move that direction, I think is a something that we may not be able to see it in a year, but maybe in 10 years we'll see the fruit of all that.
Well, and pulling people that are sleeping in doorways of businesses out of those doorways will actually increase the property values and the community health.
That's another thing, I mean, 'cause my husband and I own rentals too, here locally. So, and that's another issue when you're hearing, oh yeah, I've had people walking up my driveway searching for cans and, you know, or into my garage and, or stealing gas cans and stuff. And I know we down on the creek area there have had, tools, rakes, those kind of things stolen. And, you know, again, there's really no recourse unless you catch them in the act of doing it, or, you know, but I also don't want people moving because homeless are constantly on my property, and then I'm losing out income that I.
Well, the tough thing with that too, you know, I live up on 10th and Oak Terrace, which I do have a property that borders the creek as well. And we've lived there for 40 years. Our house has been broken in twice, and various things stolen off our property 8 or 10 times, but none of those were as a homeless person. None of them.
That's true.
So that's a little bit of a, we can stereotype and, you know, put people in these boxes, but really, honestly, all of them were others that probably are out there that's trying to make a fast buck to go out and buy maybe some of their illicit drugs and that, or just, you know, want to take, but all of them in those cases have been, you know, and the police department's been the law enforcement's been very good at helping us and actually have caught them before, you know, but it is, it's tough. I understand. I did have a person come up that she was from the street. She came to my door and asked if I had any cans and bottles, and I was a bit surprised. She came and asked, and she was very polite to me, and I said no, but she left, and she came back by probably 45 minutes later with a shopping cart completely ran it over, but she just went door to door and asked for cans.
My neighbor's actually a state trooper, and he wanted to be here tonight, but he had other things going on. But yeah, that was one of the, I mean, he had somebody walk right into his garage saying they were looking for cans, and they stole a gas can off his son's 4Runner, and I mean, there's just been several.
I mean, there's opportunities out there.
Yes, sir.
You know,
And we've never had a problem with a homeless person stealing anything. It's always been housed people with an issue. So we need to keep moving though. Right now, we don't have any language before us for the 7-person board. I think it would be okay to take the opportunity to make some suggestions of what that might look like. I think they should all be people who live within the city or close to the city, or what do you think about that? I think a representative from their fact that if they're going to be affecting our community, they should live at least within the school district perimeter.
I would think school district would be okay, because some of our committees on the city are, you can go outside the city for them, like planning, and some of the parks committee, I think, has outside the city. But
Is there anything else we would like to see?
what do you think, Chief?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I would prefer to just see it citywide, but that's.
Well, but we
It's really affected citywide residents.
yeah.
How
But you
about,
have-
The more we
but you-
extend it out, the
How-
more we extend it out, the more apt some are say, well, just, you know, they're in my neighborhood.
No,
How
she's
about-
talking
I have a
about the
question.
7-person board,
That's what I'm
not
talking
the.
about.
okay,
Well,
so listen,
Okay.
what about no more than 2 people that don't live within the city, but they need to live within the district? Does that sound like a good compromise?
I can really live with anything. That would just be my concern.
Well, I understand your concern. But you do have a lot of people that own businesses in town that are affected that want to be, you know, potentially.
Okay, we're going to do no more than 2 from outside the city, but within the district. Does that sound good? Okay. And that's an important point that they may not think about it. So is there anything else that we would ask?
Well, where's your representation come from? Do you have 2 from the city council, 1 from the city council, 1 from
It should be a cross section.
I mean, but you're gonna have to have a few assigned and then,
And then let the rest go. So
wouldn't you?
would somebody from the police department be on this board?
Possibly. And really, and some of that is just based on what,
Yeah.
you know, what the council would like to see as well. I mean, there could be a benefit for having our Sean, our homeless liaison on there. But we could also live without that. My biggest hope with this 7-member board is that it has a complete cross-reference of ideas and opinions. I mean, I think it's important to have some that aren't necessarily even in favor of this, or at least someone who's not necessarily in favor of this whole concept on there, just to make sure everybody's represented.
So someone representing the PD.
Yep.
Okay, that way they don't have to be an employee. They could be someone looking out after those interests. That's their designated
Absolutely.
responsibility.
And we wouldn't have a problem having somebody on on that board as well.
Okay.
Would we want somebody from mental health? Would we want somebody from, you know,
There's a lot to choose from, and
you know, I'm
I
just,
think you're gonna have, you know, when you're getting it narrowed down to like mental health and that, we're gonna have more difficult finding them that reside in.
I understand. I mean,
You know, the only one I know of is James.
I'm asking the
How-
question.
Services definitely could be involved in that.
Or it doesn't have to be mental health, it may be a social service
Social service.
provider. What
Could be a
do you
housing
think, Dick?
Representative, you know, could be financial assistance. I mean, it could be a variety of.
A social service provider. How about somebody from our committee? Right now? Okay. I think that's reasonable. That if they do have somebody on that board, could even become and be here with us. But they don't have to originate from us, but they would become part of us. Does that make sense? Okay.
Someone from the business sector.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to say chamber. I think you'd want to say business because,
I think someone that, you know, kind of represents the business sector, because the individuals that own businesses in Sweet Home or whatever are the ones that are affected to some degree with this. And you think they might be involved.
That would be 5. And given it's a 7-person board and a couple of these are pretty lax, as long, you know, like I said, the person that
Is
would
that anybody
represent
from the
us
city?
could be,
is that having anybody from your council on there?
no. We'd have somebody representing the community health committee, someone representing the PD. I think that's good. Someone representing social services. I don't think we need to get into the weeds on this any more than that. And those are recommendations.
Unless you wanted a member of a church organization. I don't know. Maybe
I
that's
think
part
we
of-
should have.
Sham or,
I mean, I would think that
How would-
would kind of be a good one to have in the mix.
why don't you put like Sham, Mana, you know, that in a parentheses, somebody from those organizations to be in there?
Anna did ask me if they would have some sort of involvement with this. So again, there's a
Community
group of
service.
people that's dealing with meals and that saying
Yeah.
maybe we need to be informed or be somewhere connected to that whole sleep center net.
I don't want to exclude people that might.
And they might just be a resource to one of these other groups as well.
I was going to say there's cross-referencing here too, because like Sean is of this group and from the PD, and so as long as we have those bases covered, we're all right. Let me see.
Sounds good.
2, 3, 4, 5. That's a recommendation. Okay. I think that's. Is there anything else we should? Yes, Dick.
If I might, this is one of the difficult areas. But again, somebody's been doing this a long time. Someone's going to notice that one of the groups that is not represented is the homeless people, the folks who actually are using the service. And it might be nice to figure out how to develop a language that allows that.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out.
So Dick, do you think that they should sit on there as a voting member or as an external member that advisory?
Well, if this had been up and running already, I would say anybody who's, pardon the expression, graduated out of the group. But we don't have that. I think it diminishes people if you know, oh, we'll just let you sit and advise. This is going to be their home. And, you know, they probably ought to have something to say about what works and what doesn't work. It's a difficult area. I'm fine if you know, if we decide not to do it, but it's really not fair.
No, I agree. I actually wrote a homeless person, someone in the program. Okay, I think that would be
Right.
appropriate. Because it's really
Yeah, when we do
loosely-
this in mental health or drug and alcohol, it's usually somebody who is using the service already, and you know, someone who has been kind of has already proven themselves to be a leader within that group. So you're not getting somebody who's, you know, just fresh walking in, you know, just moved in from Tallahassee and are living on the streets. So.
Okay,
And the social service people can help you with that.
okay.
It kind of makes me think of the individual that stood up that night and said, I've been saved by going through this process. Someone like that, Nick, that stood up and
Yeah,
said,
that's
wasn't
what
for them, I wouldn't be
yeah,
here.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Have we missed anything?
I think we're doing good.
I think that then they'll be responsible for bylaws, mission statement, goals, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
All right. All right. That brings us to reports.
No report.
Oh, you guys are working on your Christmas card thing. I know you got stuff to report. And you're going to be doing something with the Rotary for popcorn.
Yeah, if anybody wants to buy popcorn, we're selling our bags of popcorn and we're taking orders. So, you know, we make good popcorn. You've all ate it.
I told him I want snickerdoodle.
We're going tomorrow night and we're going to make some at the park so everybody gets used to making it. I have a big kettle corn machine. It's about that big.
Okay.
And it's going to be at the Harvest Festival.
Tomorrow night they're practicing though.
Tomorrow night
so
we're
you should swing
practicing
by
it
the park.
at Sankey.
What time?
Practicing popcorn.
What time is it tomorrow? Is it 5? 5:30?
You set this up, I'm not sure.
I think it was 5. I think we said 5 because
So by
we wanted some
5:30
light.
they should have lots of popcorn.
The Harvest Festival is Saturday, October 2nd.
which is about 2 weeks.
Okay. That sounds yummy. I will be happy to taste test your popcorn. Blair, do you have anything to add? Okay. Do you have any questions? Anything to add?
Nope.
Okay.
If either one of you are painters also, we do need painters for the Christmas cards.
That'd be awesome.
I'll give you my phone number.
Okay. Sean. Are we on track here?
Are you talking to Sean or myself?
Sean. I want him first because I know that.
I think so.
Okay. We didn't miss anything? Okay. Chief.
No, I think we're just excited to really push this forward and get this in front of both council and the commissioners to move on.
Yeah. Just get this done. Okay. Dick. Do you have anything you want to add?
Good job. Good
Anything-
job bossing us around, Lisa. I don't
Oh.
have anything.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Bob.
Nothing for
I'll
me.
bet.
Great job by everyone.
Okay. Seeing no other business before us, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
You want to give that check back over here?
No, I'll hang on to it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nick.
Matter of fact, I could probably lay this on Julie's desk.
Individual like that.
Yeah.
ask nice questions.